Hey guys, welcome to today's video. My name is Lorraine Chimbga. Join me as I talk about law, life and more. And today's video is a story time about my worst application rejection story for a training contract. So let's get into it. So yes, before we start, I know the title's very clickbaity, but tis the season and very relevant. And if you do like my content, please do like, share and subscribe. I know today's title is very clickbaity, but it is relevant for this season because it is now offer season. Why I said season a lot, I know, but it is the season. I think you might have seen on LinkedIn or Instagram people being very delighted and excited and honored to have received an offer, whether for a vacation scheme or an actual training contract offer. And it got me thinking about my own experiences, especially early on when I first started out on this journey of applying to become a solicitor. So what is it? It's back in second year, and for context, I'm going to start with the context first, is that I was a brand ambassador for this firm, and I was actually one of the first few brand ambassadors that they'd ever had in the UK. So it was like a great opportunity, and the context for that was in my first year, I hadn't performed as well as I thought I would have due to a number of reasons. A, just having to work part-time to support myself, and secondly, just adjusting to university and not appreciating a new learning style. So when it came to applying for law firms, and then when I discovered the world of, commercial law and networking, I realized grades were important. They are, but they're not. But at that time I was like, oh my goodness, I'm such a failure. How am I ever going to get a training contract with these grades? Which they weren't bad, by the way. It was like 2 2s, but then 2 firsts. So, again, like I said, it wasn't the end of the world, but naive second year Lorraine was like, this is it. I'm never going to become a lawyer. So after that, in first year, I decided to make my own experience because I figured if no one was going to give me experience, or if I didn't have what it took to apply, I was going to make my own experience, which is what I did. So that's where Life of a London Law Student came from. So I started a blog, blogging about my experiences, and also because I didn't see anyone who looked like me who was going for this. So I thought, hey, at least there's one of me out there. Come on, let me see if I can help others as well that look like me. So that's where the blog came from. So when I got the job for the brand ambassador, I used that to leverage and show that I'm actually creative, self-starting, etc. And I think that's how I got that role ultimately in the end. So bearing in mind, I was the brand ambassador for this firm, I got to know GradRec very well. I was quite close to what they were doing. And I think that was my first mistake, was becoming emotionally attached to the law firm. And it's a very easy thing to do, especially if it's for a career that you want. But I think one of the lessons I learned in retrospect is it's like dating. Don't get emotionally attached to the wrong one, because it's only going to get hurt. You're only going to get hurt in the end, right? But yeah, so when it came around to vacation scheme season as well, all the brand ambassadors had to apply and go through the normal process as everyone else, which is, fair enough, right? You're not just going to get handed an opportunity like that. So I went through the application process and I got onto the VAC scheme. Initially I wanted to be in London, but they only had 2 spaces in London. But I'm originally from Manchester, so they had more spaces in their Manchester office. So also it just meant I could be home for the summer and save a lot of money and also still get to do a VAC scheme, which was great. But again, that was me almost compromising because I've always wanted to stay in London. And I think looking back now, I would say desperate to get a VAC scheme that was training contract that was willing to compromise on my dream of staying in London. So again, that's another thing, it can be really difficult to balance getting an opportunity versus compromising on what you actually want. But I think if you see yourself going, oh, it's fine, anything will do, it's really time to evaluate whether you're applying for the right reasons or going for that firm for the right reasons as well. And like I said, I can only say this with the wisdom of hindsight and just having gone through that process over many years, over the last couple of years. So went through the VAC scheme. I thought, I guess I didn't, but I thought I did really well. I really applied myself. I tried to be as professional as possible and put the best foot forward. And again, another lesson, sometimes you can do your best but still not get through, right? Because there are a number of factors, whether it's space. And I think for me, again, like I said, I don't think this law firm is bad or anything, but I think in retrospect and looking at the person I am now, it might not have been the right fit for me and the right work, but since it was my first application, my first VAC scheme, I think I was like, oh, I'm so desperate, I really want this, right? Don't be desperate. Sorry, that's kind of harsh. Not desperate, but just make sure you're guarding your heart, because it can be really easy to get emotionally invested in this process as well. So let's fast forward, gone through the whole thing, and then it's obviously that phone call where they're like, hi, this is the result. And you know how they have like that voice which is like, hi, is this Lorraine? And you're like, oh, I failed, this is done, this is it, this is me done. But yeah, she had that unfortunately voice, and I still do not like the word unfortunately to this day. I mean, how many emails unfortunately? But anyways, that's a side tangent. I'm not hurt or anything. I'm joking. But yeah, so she started, obviously as soon as she said that, she was like, unfortunately we won't be like proceeding with you this time. And I think this was not my finest hour, because I was so blindsided and couldn't even see that maybe I might not have been the right fit for that firm. I was so upset on the phone. I mean, obviously I wasn't rude or anything, but I was just very, very silent throughout this call, which meant that like I didn't get time to absorb the feedback that she was giving me, and I was kind of very short and curt, which I'm like not really proud of actually following, like just reflecting back on it, because again, like I said, I just got so involved with it. And I remember once the call ended, I cried for like an hour. I ugly cried for an hour, guys. That's how deep it was. So yeah, that is my worst application rejection story. And I'm not just putting it out there for fun, but I just wanted to share a few lessons that I learned following on from there. So what are they? So the first thing that I really learned from that experience was over time, actually, to be fair, is it's not personal. And I think when you're first starting out making the applications, it can feel like they're personally against you and your application, and that's why you didn't get it, whether you're getting rejected at the application, interviewing, assessment center stage, or the VAC scheme itself. It can be really difficult, but just recognize that if you're getting to that stage especially, you can do it, and you do have the skills and the talent to get there. But now the second lesson, which I learned, which is tied with the whole it's not personal thing, is you need to honestly self-reflect. Was is that firm really for you, or were you applying because you want a training contract? And it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. But also, there's a chocolate that everyone wants, except that coconut one. I don't know where that analogy was going, but it's the same thing, right? It can be very difficult to differentiate between firms, but there's so many in England and Wales, and I know sometimes it can be difficult when everyone always talks about magic circle, this one or that one, but I genuinely believe that the market is so diverse that there's a place for everyone. So 2, it forced me to do some honest self-reflection, and then I realized, oh, you know, I'd been emotionally attached to that firm. You know, just because I was a brand ambassador doesn't mean I was the right fit in terms of a VAC scheme. And also it made me realize I didn't want to leave London. I wanted a bigger firm where I could do more interesting work. But then also in that moment in time, in second year, it wasn't important that I secured a training contract, like I've always said in my other videos. Rather, it was more important for me to focus on my grades and then kind of build a niche for myself, and which I did exactly that. And by the time I finished in third year, like I said, I had firsts, I built my niche, and I found my interest in information technology law, and worked in fintech and legal tech, and that's how I ended up on Ignite Lecture. You know, so I mean, that's a very short condensed version of that story, but that, I think if I hadn't done that, taken that time and just maybe blindly pursued a VAC scheme or training contract just anywhere, I don't think I would have made it this far, or I probably would be with the wrong firm, who knows, I don't know, or just not in this career at all. Lastly, again, this forced me to re-evaluate, do I actually want to be a lawyer? And like I said, in second year, I was convinced that, you know what, it's easier to come back to law than it is to get into something that you're not 100% sure about and then try to get out later. And that's exactly what I did with exploring other careers. But then also it forced me to look for gaps in my approach. So my interviewing skills, my professionals, I think I've always been professional, but I think, for example, having worked for a while, I'm more comfortable in an office setting, and I was more confident in that. So all I'm saying with this video is, no matter how bad your season of apps has been this year, whether you got news that you didn't really, you know, weren't expecting, or after you feel like you've done a lot of hard work, you're still not getting anywhere, just really use this time to honestly self-reflect. Number one, do you actually want to be a lawyer? And I know that's a scary thing to ask yourself. It was for me, but I think by allowing myself to step away, I confirmed, and then I came back stronger, you know. Number two, if you are getting rejected at a specific stage, honestly self-reflect. What is it exactly, and where are you falling short, and improve that. So again, like I said, I went back, reflected, and I was like, okay, cool. I was professional, but I just needed to have a little bit more depth to me and more experience, and I did that. And just, I know it sounds really cheesy, but what is your why? You know, sometimes I get a lot of questions in my DMs going, okay, but what did you say to Clifford Chance? And I think what people forget is like, what makes you you is unique, and no one can take that away from you. So no one can take away my experience and my story. And so my why was, it inherently came from who I am, my experiences, and what I'd gone through. So no one else can replicate that. And even if they did, they can't do it like Lorraine, right? So when you come about building your why for the next season, just focus on what makes you unique. You know, I remember, for example, in my Clifford Chance interview, talking about how I love like a good serial killer documentary and financial crime documentary and true crime, all that kind of stuff. And I remember talking to one of the partners, they were a pension or fund, partner, and I was talking to them about a YouTube documentary that I'd watched about the impending financial crisis due to pension fund deficit and then aging population. That's personality. That's something no one can take away from me. So focus on that. So rejection is a redirection. It's tough, but use this time to be really honest with yourself and actually know that the percentages of people getting accepted versus rejected is smaller, right? There are a lot more people who are in your position, and it doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it any easier, but know that you're not the only one going through this. And if this is something that you really want, sometimes it just takes time. So for example, I graduated in 2016 from university, worked, and I only got my offer from Clifford Chance in 2019. 2019. And even then, now I'm on the LLM LPC. It's been okay, but that's a different ballgame. That's a different pressure, because now I'm like, I need to pass, otherwise this is gone. So, you know, those are things. It never ends. There's always different levels. So just know you're doing great. And if you have to, turn off those notifications. Don't go on LinkedIn and don't compare yourself. Just focus on you. And I think that's where my confidence comes from. I really do not focus on anyone else except me and what I'm doing and whether I'm doing best. Obviously, sometimes when you see people doing great things, like, oh, but then I'm like, oh, that means I can do it too. So then I just work hard and do it. So I hope that helped. Let me know what you think, and good luck for the next season. Take some time, rest, reflect, and get back at it if that's what you want, by the way. And it's also fine if you don't want to pursue this anymore and want something alternative. There's so many options out there if you're aspiring to join the legal field. Thank you for watching, guys.